In Prison Break, he is the most ruthless fugitive to himself. Just a short while ago, one of his hands was tied to a radiator. Hearing the approaching sirens outside, Teabag, in agony, bit off the hand that had just been stitched up days before. By the time the police arrived, all that was left in the corner was a blood-drenched severed hand. And now, Teabag found himself locked in a cage by Michael once again. To unlock the cell door, he had to remove his prosthetic rubber hand. Unfortunately, the prosthetic hand fell to a place utterly out of his reach. Don assured Michael that he would imprison Teabag and keep a strict watch over him. Once Scylla was in their hands, he would send Teabag to prison to face his deserved fate. But the question remained, what secrets lay beneath this office? Michael explains that our priority is to get the last data card. Then, they could start from the office's basement, pass through a tunnel, and arrive at Krantz's office in the adjacent building. There, a device capable of decrypting Scylla's data awaited, and successfully accessing the data would utterly destroy the company. As the trio walked out of the building, they suddenly heard a phone ringing under a trash can, with an envelope beneath it. Mahone opened it to find it contained parts of the bird guide. It turned out the map in Michael's hands was incomplete, and the crucial pages had been removed. The woman claimed that if they didn't bring Teabag to her, they could forget about getting the remaining pages. Michael hastily took the phone.
Hello, Michael.
They agreed to meet at a church. Gretchen cut straight to the chase, proposing they collaborate to bring down the company. Although this person had once tortured Sarah beyond recognition, holding the key pages of the bird guide forced Michael to agree reluctantly. Soon after, Teabag was released. Gretchen instructed Teabag that his task from now on would be to provide cover for them in the office alongside Trishan. Michael and his crew would enter the tunnel from here to crack Scylla's data. But now Teabag is scared of Michael. He advises Gretchen not to trust Michael. As they spoke, Feng Huan arrived at the office again. Today was the deadline to hand over Scylla. Seeing Teabag unable to produce answers, Feng Huan pressed a gun against his head. Gretchen realized Feng Huan was the Scylla buyer James had negotiated with. She quickly intervened, claiming Scylla was within reach and asked Feng Huan to wait a few more days.
If I don't, I'll peel you like a wet grape. And the price is 100.
150.
125. Don't disappoint me.
125
million.
Hearing the $125 million figure, Teabag's eyes lit up. Knowing they couldn't secure Scylla without Michael's intellect, Teabag quickly changed his stance, urging Gretchen to mend fences with Michael. On the other hand, the Prison Break team still has to get the last data card, which is in the hands of the big boss, General Krantz. Without the receiver, they had to resort to the most brute force method. They acquired a broken car from a recycling center and fortified it, planning to create an accident to steal the data card for copying, to prevent Krantz from recognizing them and initiating an endless pursuit. Michael had Dawn procure an ambulance, Sarah disguised as a medical worker, ready to administer an anesthetic to Krantz after the crash, ensuring everything went without a hitch. Meanwhile, Wyatt connected with Roland, offering $1 million for the heads of the Michael brothers, though he was unsure if Roland's information was accurate. To show his sincerity, Roland immediately detailed the Prison Break team's car crash plan. At this moment, Lincoln and Sucre were ready, poised to crash into them. Unexpectedly, upon receiving Wyatt's notification, Krantz immediately turned and fled. Realizing something was amiss, Michael quickly signaled for everyone to retreat, but it was already too late.
Sucre, get down! Get ready! Get down! Faster! Hang on! Hang on!
Wyatt fired several shots upon arrival, and Sucre was unfortunately hit in the abdomen. Lincoln hurriedly fled with him. After escaping back to the base, Sarah immediately tended to Sucre's wound. Michael, noticing the operation map in the hall, realized someone must have betrayed them, and Roland was the most likely suspect. He confronted Roland about the possibility of betrayal, which, of course, Roland would not admit. Without delving deeper, Michael simply returned the confiscated computer to him, asking him to check the surveillance cameras at the operation site. Soon after, Sucre's wound was treated, and Don called to say that the tracker on Roland's foot had gone offline. They rushed upstairs only to find that Roland had escaped. Roland arrived at the meeting place, still fixated on the $1 million, but to his surprise, Wyatt pulled out a gun and shot him in the knee.
The thing about a gunshot to the kneecap, it takes days to die from it. Now, if I were to shoot you, let's say, here, the hollow point would tumble through you, leaving white-hot slivers in your insides, causing unimaginable pain, only ending when you bled out on this pavement.
Unable to bear the torture, Roland immediately revealed the location of their secret base. But, having got his answer, Wyatt shot him again. Just as Wyatt was preparing to leave, Mahone arrived and knocked Wyatt down with a bat. This man was the cruel murderer of his son, and Mahone's rage peaked. He unleashed a flurry of punches on Wyatt. Just as Mahone was about to kill him, Lincoln urgently stopped Mahone and took Wyatt away. Michael opened Roland's backpack and took out a notebook, revealing that a tracker had been installed inside. Unable to bear the thought of Roland dying alone, Michael held his hand, offering him the last bit of warmth before death. Do you know where the most sensitive nerve endings in the human body are located? The answer is in the fingertips. Even minor injuries can cause intense burning pain. And now, Mahone pulled out a 5-inch thin needle and forcefully inserted it into Wyatt's middle finger. The slow, piercing pain quickly shot up to his brain, making Wyatt scream in excruciating agony. From a physiological perspective, when the human body cannot withstand extreme pressure, it will initiate a protective mechanism and fall into shock. But Mahone would not let Wyatt pass out just like that. Mahone had prepared a taser in advance, programmed to automatically activate if Wyatt's heart rate fell below 50. This setup ensured that Wyatt would be immersed in a state of pain every minute, every second, caught in a limbo of desiring to live yet wishing for death. In the hour that followed, Mahone sat quietly by, savoring Wyatt's screams, for only this could slightly alleviate the pain of losing his son. Wyatt couldn't hold out any longer and begged Mahone for mercy. Mahone called his ex-wife Pam, wanting her to hear the murderer apologize with his own words.
I'm sorry.
It's over. And I love you.
Because of the death of his son, Mahone was never able to face Pam, and Pam was in tears all day long. Although they still loved each other deeply, they could never return to how things were before. Mahone took Wyatt to the coast on his own, tying several tens of pounds of rocks to Wyatt's hands before unhesitatingly pushing him into the vast sea. From that moment on, Mahone completely let go of the hatred that had been choking his heart. From now on, he planned to wholeheartedly assist Michael in completely dismantling the company that caused all their tragedies. Meanwhile, Wyatt's disappearance alarmed Krantz, who urgently convened a meeting with the 5 cardholders to decide to move Scylla's decryption device out of the company building. But suddenly, the cold-faced Gretchen stormed into the office. Logically, Krantz should have feared Gretchen's revenge since the company had abandoned her and even ordered her death. But unexpectedly, Krantz remained calm and dismissed all his bodyguards.
Lisa? I knew you'd come home.
Gretchen is Krantz's trusted advisor, and their relationship goes beyond superior and subordinate. The biological daughter Gretchen hid at her sister's house was indeed hers and Krantz's. With just a few sweet words, Krantz made Gretchen hesitate whether to return to his side, as if she had lost her soul. To show sincerity, Krantz continued to discuss the matter of moving the Scylla decryption device in front of Gretchen. Due to the device's immense size and complexity, dismantling it would take at least 3 days. This meant that within 3 days, Michael and his team had to obtain the 6th data card and also ensure the passage to the company was opened before the device was moved. Currently, since the theft of the 6th data card just failed, Krantz would surely be on guard, so Michael decided to change tactics and open the tunnel first. The team studied the design map leading to the company, most of which Michael knew like the back of his hand. Only the end of a certain corridor, marked with a conspicuous cross, was unknown, and Michael decided to scout it out first. Teabag covered for Michael and his crew at Gate Company, allowing them to enter smoothly with tools. They reached the storage room and opened the cover plate, finding the space below larger than expected, with immense noise emanating from its depths. After climbing up and down, twisting and turning, they finally reached the end of the corridor. Seeing the scene before him, Michael understood the meaning of that cross. It turned out to be one of Los Angeles's main water pipelines. With a terrifying diameter of over 3 meters and a flow rate of 30,000 liters per second, Lincoln knocked on the iron pipe wall, and the dull sound indicated the wall was at least 30 centimeters thick, meaning crossing from here was nearly a pipe dream. But this was the only route, and they couldn't risk digging too close to the surface, so they had to start from below the pipeline. However, after breaking open a gap, they discovered the area below the pipeline was reinforced concrete, making digging through virtually impossible. At this impasse, Michael made a bold decision to break the water pipeline and directly cross to the other side from inside. The others were stunned by Michael's crazy idea, but since it was the only way to reach the other side, they had no choice but to follow his orders with mixed feelings of doubt and trust. Michael instructed Sucre to dismantle a nearby sewage pipeline for use, then handed a blueprint to Lincoln. Lincoln and Bellick's task was to sabotage the water supply's control system to dry up the water pipeline for a while. They sneak into the waterworks and pry open the main switchboard to find the switchblade according to the simple drawing Michael gave them. Bellick took out a bottle of accelerant and sprayed flames towards the switchblade, instantly burning the circuit board and causing the pressure and water gauge to drop to zero. Meanwhile, Michael and Sucre already taken down the waste pipe, suspending it mid-air with ropes before marking the size of the hollow iron pipes opening on the main pipeline. Hearing the rumbling water sounds gradually fade, Michael knew the first step of the plan had succeeded, but this action affected the drinking water of millions in Los Angeles, and the government would surely repair it within an hour, meaning their operation time was limited to 60 minutes at most. Without delay, the two sprang into action, but just as Michael bent over to pick up the welding torch, a sharp pain made his head split with agony, causing him to collapse. Even exhibiting brief epileptic symptoms, Sucre was shocked and drenched in cold sweat.
Michael! Bobby, what's wrong?
After the situation eased, Michael asked Sucre not to tell anyone about his condition. Sucre just kept quiet. Anyone in the world could betray Michael but not Sucre. After 20 minutes of relentless effort, welder Sucre finally cut an opening along the drawn outline. Michael asked him to use his belt as a measuring tool to cut a similarly sized hole on the opposite wall of the pipe. However, just as Sucre was about to finish, the gas suddenly ran out, leaving them with only a little over 10 minutes until the deadline. To save time, Michael, not fully recovered, had to endure his illness and help Sucre knock out the remaining pieces. By the time Lincoln and Bellick returned, the holes on both sides were already made. Now, by inserting the sewage pipe, they could use it as a passage to freely move between the two buildings underneath. But the sewage pipe was too heavy. Two people had to enter the hole to lift the other end and then jointly push the pipe slowly into the hole on the opposite side. However, the risk was extremely high, as there were only 5 minutes left until the water supply was restored. Lincoln volunteered to lead, and Bellick also offered to go. Michael wanted to go himself but was stopped by Bellick, who could clearly sense something was wrong with Michael's health. Yet, Michael could never have imagined that this farewell would be forever. Lincoln and Bellick lifted the hose and slowly dragged it towards the opposite hole. As they neared, they propped up the pipe wall with sticks and then hurriedly climbed out to the other side. But unexpectedly, the sticks were too frail, lasting only a few seconds before snapping under pressure, causing the sewage pipe to fall. They tried their hardest to lift it, but it was futile. To their despair, the chilling sound of rushing water was already approaching in the distance. Lincoln wanted to give up, but without this opportunity, they would never be able to obtain Scylla and take down the company. Bellick didn't want to lose all his hard work, so he defied Lincoln and jumped into the hole in order to be free, then used all his strength to carry the hundreds of kilograms of steel pipe alone. Michael, hearing the increasingly loud sound of water, saw Bellick persevering through a crack and shouted loudly for Bellick to come back. Knowing Bellick was determined to face death, Michael and the others, bearing immense heartache, gradually pushed the water pipe into place. In his final moments, Bellick remembered Lincoln had children but forgot about his own 80-year-old mother. For the safety of the others, Bellick chose to stay in the water, facing the rushing torrents alone, showing a look of fear and resolve. In that moment, Bellick was a hero to everyone. Before the operation, Bellick had a premonition he might not return. He asked Sucre to call his mother in case of his accident, wanting her to know her son hadn't disgraced her. The team at the base hadn't yet recovered from the grief of Bellick's death, Sucre, composing himself, inquired about Bellick's body. Don, in bureaucratic tone, said it was en route to the morgue but would be stored as a John Doe in Homeland Security's morgue to avoid leaking secrets. Sucre, enraged, confronted Don.
He's got a mother, you know.
Mahone intervened, warning Don that if he wanted Scylla, he'd have to return Bellick's body to his mother. Faced with determined eyes, Don had no choice but to agree. While clearing out Bellick's belongings, Mahone found a silver badge, hidden by Bellick during the second Scylla capture. Sucre, heartbroken, mentioned that Bellick had failed the police academy 5 times while working as a guard at Fox River State Penitentiary. Bellick's lifelong dream was to become a police officer, a dream unfulfilled even in death. Eventually, Bellick's body was returned. Mahone placed the badge on Bellick's chest in the hope that in the other world he would wear the shiny badge and fulfill his quest for justice.
His mom will appreciate that.
Sucre, gathering courage, called Bellick's mother to tell her that her son had died heroically on a secret mission for his country. All of them continue to fight with Bellick's will. After all, taking down the company is the best thing that could have happened to him. At this point, Gretchen had returned from Krantz and handed over the missing pages of the Bird Guide to Michael, revealing that her joining Krantz was actually a ruse to gather intelligence. Krantz was moving the Scylla device tomorrow, leaving them less than a day. Gretchen took responsibility for the 6th data card, leaving Michael and the team to focus on breaking through the underground passage. Back at the base, Michael pieced together Gretchen's pages with the map. The map showed the water pipeline was 30 meters from the Scylla decoder's location, separated by a steel fiber reinforced wall. The good news is the company doesn't want to leave any visual evidence of Scylla's existence, so there are no cameras in the room. But what's utterly disheartening is that the room is equipped with weight, heat, and sound sensors. Any living thing over 2 pounds triggers the company's security alarm. In other words, they must chisel through that wall without making a sound. Then, without emitting heat or touching the ground, approach the decoder. It seems like an impossible task, but Michael decides to give it a shot anyway. However, just then, a severe headache strikes again, sending Michael spinning and eventually collapsing to the ground. With the linchpin gone, it essentially spells the end for the plan. Despite Don's desperate attempts to prevent it, the group decides to take Michael to the hospital. Tests revealed that Michael had a very rare misshapen tumor in his hypothalamus and that the tumor was getting bigger. Michael's mother died from a brain tumor, suggesting the disease might be hereditary. Given the family history, the doctor insists he undergo surgery tomorrow.
It feels that you need surgery.
2 days. That's what I need.
Tomorrow. Otherwise you could die and there's no